Mere Mortals, welcome back to another edition of the Mere Mortals book reviews. But this is going to be a bit of a bonus, bit of learnings, bit of insights into Joseph Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces. So I have previously done a little bit of a book review. So if you haven't checked that out, I'd suggest you go do that first of all, and then come back to actually listen to these learnings. So what is learnings? I go through a few of the quotes, a few of the pieces that really showing out to me from the book. I wanted to share them with you guys and actually just talk through and actually just iterate on them. So I'm going to jump straight into it. And these couple of the quotes that I pulled out and I found really insightful as part of the book. So 1, every failure to cope with a life situation must be laid in the end to a restriction of consciousness. Now, why do I find this so interesting? Well, it made me really think. So one of the key things that I've always had probably trouble, but also very conscious about is how your emotions control your decisions. And I almost felt like this took it a little bit of a next level on, when there is failure in your life situation, to the restriction of consciousness. And it makes me think how if there is an issue that occurs in life, there is a restriction in the way that you're handling your consciousness or the way you're handling the emotional control within yourself. And it was just sort of shared in a different way. It almost made me think, okay, when it's a life failure, am I just not completely controlling my consciousness at that point? It's almost going beyond me for those life failures. So I just thought, okay, that's quite interesting. Symbols are only the vehicles of communication. They must not be mistaken for the final term, the tenor of their reference. Now, I talked more in depth, obviously, in the book review around this, but I want to just touch on this in particular, the fact that symbols are only the vehicles of communication. And one of the why I found this really interesting is in a lot of stories, especially myth, especially things that are shared, maybe religious or in other terms, I tend to focus, and I feel like a lot of people do, is on the symbols and the images and the historical nature of what's being told. So if you were to tell me around an Egyptian story back in 3000 BC where Cleopatra did this, or this person, they did the book of the dead was placed on them and they were termed as something Osiris, etc., 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 I would take a lot of these stories to heart in terms of, okay, historical nature. Here's a time, here's a person. And I almost saw it in that it either happened or not, that 1 to 0. And I got stuck at that higher level of the storyline where, reading this, it's look at it from, yes, there's that level, but don't forget that there is a key, the tenor of the information that's being shared. So whatever the value is below that. So in the case of a lot of these monomyths, there's a particular thing that's being shared as part of it, whether it is, that return, the initiation, the boons, the gifts that are being given. There's probably a lot of cases in my life and many people's life where we focus on some of the high level information that's being shared in the story, and I'm missing that key, the gooey, valuable stuff that's at the very core. So something very interesting to me. Another one, only the bodies of which this eternal, imperishable, incompetent self is the individual are said to have an end. So I'm going to tie with a couple of other items because I'm going to bundle these all in because it relates to the ego and the self. One of the ones that I pulled out was, can the ego put itself to death? Bit of a question. And having died to his personal ego, he arose again, established in the self. What an interesting couple of things. I didn't anticipate that I would find some of these conversations and discussions in the book, but it prompted a big thought in my mind around, can the ego itself kill itself? Can the ego willingly, so right at the forefront of your mind, decide that I'm going to go after it and get rid of it so I can become the self or be more open to the self? So this just more broadly and talking about this particular point. Can you do that? I think you can. I think there's a lot of ways that people have done this in the past. I just don't think that it's an easy way to do so. Now, to be reborn to the self, it doesn't obviously go into it in this book as to how to do that, but it's a great question, I think, to impose on oneself, to think about, have you seen at times where your ego has fallen back in you trying to attempt to get rid of it and to see internally within oneself? And, in comparison and contrast to, discussions with the monomyth, it often makes me think as well, have I looked at my story, my origin, what I think about life, and gotten focused on the symbols and the high level items where the ego may lie, and just forgotten about the gooey, valuable stuff that might be found in the self, or the core story that's being trying to share, or the point that I should be taking. I think it happens a lot. And it was just something that got brought up as part of the book that I thought, okay, this is quite interesting. My last one here is, in other words, mythology is psychology misread as biography, history, and cosmology. And again, that's another one of those key items that I took away from this book. In that being, don't mistake something for what it really is, and don't let its ability of what you first interpret it as really take over on what it's actually trying to be intended. Stepping back from just that, right? Taking mythology as cosmology, theology, and everything else is, when someone's trying to communicate with you or trying to share with you something, it is often, at least for me, that I might jump to conclusions on, okay, well, this person's trying to tell me this because of this, and digging down into some real reasons as to maybe why they're sharing, or what their base value, or what their attempted, what they're trying to share is getting to, for me as well. That's really some of the main items I obviously wanted to share. There's some beautiful language pieces that I also wanted to, as I always call out, that I wanted to share with you guys. One being Napoleon's, "Till then, not all the forces of mankind can do anything against me." There was all these great little sentences that came up in this book, in Joseph Campbell's The Hero with a Thousand Faces, where I read it and I went, oh, really enjoy this. And I would pull out maybe one page out of every 50. I'd go, oh, this is awesome, beautiful language. But I would then get really lost in what Joseph was trying to share. And I got really lost, obviously, in the symbols and the stories, and not the really digging deep into the core stuff that he might have been able to share. So those have been a few things there that I wanted to share with you guys. It's definitely a more personal things that I found of interest in the book. So I'd be really intrigued around what you found from Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces, especially the little learnings or the little golden nuggets that you might have found underneath the myriad of words that he showcases for us. That I'm going to keep it nice and short for you out there, mere mortals. That has been Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces, a little bit of a book learnings and interests that I found as part of the book. Folks, I hope you enjoyed. As always, take care. One out.